Last but not least, Dubois Akeen advises this last group. The team has been working with the Climate Equity Foundation, and I'll let Ella take it from here.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. This moment in history is about more than an energy upgrade. It's a test to our values, and the scale is staggering. Last year, $272 billion was pumped into the clean energy revolution. That's not just money, that's power. And like any source of power, it can be used to replicate the same inequities we've always seen, or to build something better. Currently, 45% of the population in the United States living in these energy communities is identified by the government as disadvantaged. That's nearly half the population, the front lines of this transition, that too often is being left out of the rewards. Here's the agenda for tonight on what we hope to cover and get through the challenge that these big numbers entail. We are told this is a clean energy revolution, but the hard truth is, if it's not equitable, it's not clean. If it leaves no lasting benefits, displaces communities, and doesn't make their voices heard, it's just a new version of an old harm. What we need is not just cleaner energy, but a cleaner system. That's where our mission to help our client develop a new effective version of the community benefits plan and the communication to do so comes in. Our client is a nonprofit committed to advancing community-centered clean energy. They really think that community benefits plans can be an effective bridge between equity and infrastructure. CBPs themselves, which we will be referring to as their acronym, are agreements established between energy developers and communities. And they often are designed to deliver jobs, more education, better environmental health, etc. On paper, they are promising, but in reality, they are inconsistent, surface level, and often top-down. And despite this, they hold immense potential. Done right, community benefits plans are the lever that can transition the clean energy transition into a community reinvestment movement. To understand how to tackle this daunting problem, we needed to first define it. We did this by having 5 main research objectives. The first was looking at the structural conditions communities are currently facing. Then it was realizing how the communities are responding to current injustices. Next was, what are company commitments looking like in this day and age in terms of CBPs? Then, how are policy environments shaping this landscape? And finally, what are the communication strategies that are then molding public sentiment? Here's our very committed team of members working hard on this project. We were comprised of 8 people, and we split into 2 teams. One team was focused more on CBPs and the research themselves, while the other was focused more on the communication side of things. Together at the end, we came together to synthesize it, all from the wonderful guidance of our project advisor, Professor Akeen. Our project scope included desktop research, in-depth case studies review, stakeholder interviews, and tool creation. Within the stakeholder interviews, we conducted about 15 from a diverse group of individuals. These included utility personnel, nonprofit leaders, people that were just subject matters in the energy sector, and through them, we were able to gain a diverse understanding of the field. We also conducted 10 in-depth case study reviews, 2 of which will be highlighted later on in this presentation. Perhaps our most effective tool that we looked at was a communication dashboard, which will be issued shortly. Here's a map of energy across the United States. Each dot, regardless of the form of energy, is indicative of an interaction with a community. And yet, these interactions can vary drastically. Let's now look at 2 possible futures. Same dollars, same timeline, same technology, just different choices. In this future, clean energy keeps scaling fast, but companies are not including communities meaningfully. Developers check boxes, not build trust. CBPs are vague, one-time gestures, a few solar panels on a roof, a one-year internship program. And therefore, there's no real trust that's being made. 5 years later, when something breaks, no one's there to pick up the phone. Jobs go to outsiders, land value rises, and residents can no longer afford to be there. This exact case is seen in the Sunzia transmission line scenario in New Mexico. This project brought 550 miles of wind power to Arizona and California. However, agencies failed to consult the San Carlos tribe. Due to this, they allege that they are not in accordance with the Historical Protection Act. This then caused delays, opposition, legal action, and overall further mistrust. And this is not an anomaly to the norm. Opposition grows, projects delay, and it becomes difficult for both parties to proceed forward. The energy transition becomes yet another extraction. Now let's imagine this instead. A company sits down before construction, listens, learns, adapts. Together with the community, they build a CBP with shared values and clear accountability. As several interviewees shared, the most effective developers are the ones that sit down proactively and make it a meaningful interaction beyond just a business transaction. Local residents are hired, not just for jobs, but for careers. Revenue is reinvested into that community, and hundreds of people experience reduced household rates because of it. 5 years later, that town isn't just surviving, it's thriving, because people actually cared what went into the community benefits plan. This was shown in the Salem offshore wind case in Massachusetts. Developers engaged early and often, and because of that, long-term and measurable benefits that were significant to both parties were able to be seen. This slide is kind of meant to show the harsh contrast between the two. On a broader level, this distinction reflects what we saw across all of the case studies we looked at. The ones that were transactional experienced distrust and delays, and the ones that were transformational ensured equity in their action and shared success for everyone in the end. We know that powerful messaging can shape action. So we translated the insights from our case studies into effective communication strategies that could be then used by our client to implement in the field in a variety of ways. Based on our research and interviews, we developed 4 key strategies. The first of which is building scalable partnerships. This means a lasting benefit, ideally a 10-year investment at minimum, but more so matching the ongoing projections of the project. What's important here is that this creates a sustainable action that can be constantly referenced and held accountable. Everyone knows where the standards should be and who's in charge of putting them in place. The second is a commitment to early two-way engagement. Building relationships before infrastructure can make sure that communities actually feel seen and heard, and that their values specific to their community are represented. What this means is that unlike the first, which is focused more on longevity, this is about timing and approach. We heard time and time again from our interviewees that the more proactive, the better, and the deeper the seed is planted, the further it grows. The third recommendation highlights our dashboard. We encourage companies to use our participatory tools to support two-way communication and collaboration. Our research showed that dashboards offer a simple and effective way to centralize updates, track feedback, and share timelines, keeping communities engaged at all times. With a click of a few buttons, they can go on and see this dashboard. And one thing that we are specifically proud of is that it gives a way to submit a question or concern so that community voice and feedback is heard thoroughly and in a timely manner. The fourth is where all the synthesis comes in. We were able to align our 3 structures on CBP phases, common scenarios, and stakeholder engagement participation level. That way, with just one look, our all-encompassing goals have a clear and consistent way of being accessed. As we have learned, there is no one-size-fits-all to CBPs, so making sure that this is flexible in any scenario is of the utmost importance. Tying it back to our ideal case scenario, you see that the Salem offshore wind case study has a mix of all 4. They engaged locally and early in their communication, they went beyond construction, and they brought together stakeholder priorities to create a shared, unified goal. We are standing at a crossroads. One leads to extraction 2.0. Clean on the surface, unjust at the core. The other leads to something truly transformative. With $272 billion in motion, we are not just going into the future, we are shaping the foundation of it. And we believe that CBPs done with and not just for communities are the key to unlocking a future that heals, not harms. For our client, this is the chance to lead, not just with ideas, but with tangible tools. These recommendations can help support developers, inform policy, and guide local partnerships. This client has already fostered meaningful connections in the field. So now they can use these tools to scale those through training, resources, and acquisition. Let's not just transition energy, let's transition power. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. You said that the purpose of CBPs is to kind of be flexible with different communities. And then earlier in the presentation, you showed a map of the US and which areas are using different power sources. I was curious to know if you did any research about how communities maybe using biomass or coal might transition to clean energy and how that differs from communities using gas or oil using.
Yeah.
And then
Great. Yeah, that's a great question. So because there are so many different types of energy, we definitely did struggle in the beginning pinpointing where we wanted to focus. We thought about going just with clean energy, but then we realized that such a big part of it is correcting the injustices that are already there. So in that case, it was mainly focused on coal and oil because majority of the case studies and context is centered around those areas. So a big part of what we looked at was how do you go into communities at different stages, and that's where kind of a past case study, or a past capstone group who had worked with her focused on that, and we were able to kind of bounce off of their original ideas and see how do we go about that, and then how do we also at the same time make a framework where someone could start at that, where they're rejuvenating that connection, or they can start in the beginning when they're looking to scale a new clean energy project in a community that hasn't been touched. So the idea behind the framework is kind of you can make what you want out of it and drop yourself in where it fits.
Thank you so much. Great presentation. I have a very quick question. You talk about stakeholders interview. Can you tell us a bit more about which type of stakeholders did you interview, the type of topics and main, concern or takeaways? Thank you so much.
Yes, of course. So you saw we had 15 of those interviews. I believe 5 were done by the comms team and 10 were done by the research and CBP team. And so this was very diverse set of people. We had people from Con Edison telling us about the utilities in general and how that side of things goes down. We had people that were the third-party bridges that would go into communities and make sure the interactions were happening in a positive manner. And basically how we went into it is we formulated about 5 to 7 questions that we would send them beforehand. Each catered specifically to what they were talking about, but still trying not to be leading questions so that they could really give their candid opinions. And what was interesting is some people struggled to believe in CBPs at all, and they were very particular about this is a way that you have to do it to make sure that these are effective, because done incorrectly, they really won't be meaningful. So basically what we did is take all their subjective opinions and kind of draw for them what were the common threads, what were the common connections, and how can we use that to better inform the frameworks that we're trying to make.